So, to talk a little bit more about the literary source and the way that the literary source becomes a libretto and the way it's set, let me give you a little spiel here. So, in the case, let's take of La Bohème, and the same thing is true of Carmen, the same thing is true of La Traviata, our three major operas in this course. There is a novel, or a novella, which in this case is called Scènes de la vie de la Bohème, or Scenes from a Bohemian Life by Mugger. It is not especially easy to find, but if you can find it and read it, it is a minor masterpiece of French literature. You will enjoy it enormously. It will touch you. I won't say it will change your life, but it will touch you. So, in the case of this play, it was also turned into a drama, which was made a lot of money for the poor guy that wrote that book. By the way, this book was written for the feuilleton, for the newspapers, in scenes. Each week would have another scene. Every Sunday edition would have another scene. And so he put them all together and created this minor French masterpiece called the Latin Quarter. But actually it's Scenes from a Bohemian Life by Henri Mugger. So this became a play which is still available in libraries, but it's hard to find a translation. It's hardly ever done as a pure drama. So this was viewed by the composer, Giacomo Puccini, and of course he knew this was going on, and a libretto was shaped primarily from the novel, but the play was consulted. How do I know that? Because I've read them all and I know what they stole. So what happens is the librettist takes a novel and compresses and poeticizes it, and turns it into basically two forms which are welded together in the libretto, namely the poetic dialogue generally written as poetry, and lyric poetry, which is meant to be set into musical form, the aria, the duet, the ensemble, and so on. More about that later. This is my favorite kind of libretto. It's by the English National Opera Company, and we'll try to get this for you on the site. It has historical background, and it's bilingual, almost always bilingual. Italian, in this case, Italian and English. Carmen is French and English, and La Traviata Italian and English, so on. So you have the original text, which you always want to see on stage, if possible, and then the English translation. This becomes, in the hands of the composer working at the piano, he sets it, and this becomes what's known as the piano vocal score. And this will be the score from which the singers learn their parts, and which is generally the way in which a singer like myself in Europe would learn the part and would carry this sometimes right up on the stage and drop it as they went out on the stage to sing. No, seriously, we memorized it. But this is the piano vocal score, and then as I showed you before, this is the complete full score orchestrated. And in general, the composer wrote this, and a copyist would take the composer's notes and copy out the full score, although some composers wrote their own full scores. For example, Stravinsky was meticulous about it. He wrote several operas, Oedipus, The Rake's Progress, and so on. And this was what would be used for the conductor. So there you have it. From the novel, usually through a drama of some kind, to the libretto, using compression and poetization, and a real choice of imagery, character, and idea, reduction of everything down, and intensification of everything down from the novel. And everything that's description in the novel, which would be at least half the book, goes into orchestration, right? Summarized in orchestration, or simply cut. The libretto then is given to the composer, who tears it to shreds and usually drives the librettist insane. I mean, literally insane. I've written 3 of them myself, all been set to music, and they drove me insane. Then the piano vocal score will appear. It could be 3 months, as in some of Verdi's spectacular works. It could be a year, it could be 5 years. Puccini was a very slow composer. Giuseppe Verdi, a pretty quick one. And a character named Giacomo Rossini once wrote an opera, and I believe it was the Marriage of Figaro. No, anyway, Barber of Seville wrote the opera for the Barber of Seville, lying in a bed in 13 days with a cold. And that's a standard opera performed by everybody. So it can take a long time, or it can take a little time. Puccini took a long time, and you can understand why when you hear his operas. And Rossini took a short time. Okay, so this is the complicated process which contains the literary elements of an opera.